Celeste.
Yes.
Do you know what today is?
It's May the 4th.
Yes. You know what that means?
It means that we are about to watch a lot of Star Wars.
It means it's Free Comic Book Day.
Oh.
Glix, what is going on?
We are receiving a signal from a new area on the planet Geekery.
All right, let's see what the planet has for us today.
Opening forms in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to episode 183 of Com Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, the show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting you know that you are loved. I'm Dallas, and joined with me is the beautiful and talented Miss
Celeste.
And I am so glad to have you guys here with us on this road as we take a look at the events of May the 4th in the year of our Lord 2024.
Why are you suddenly Irish?
I don't know. So, it's May the 4th, so of course we know what that means. It's Free Comic Book Day. That's the only thing happening today. Right?
Rude.
What?
Star Wars.
Yeah. This is one of those things where the stars have aligned. And Free Comic Book Day and Star Wars Day have come together into one monumental event.
You mean the Geekdoms have aligned?
Yeah, it's like Geekdoms have aligned. So, fun fact for you guys listening, this is round 2 of us recording this podcast because I forgot to record Celeste's channel.
I think you're just silencing me.
What?
You don't want to talk about Star Wars. You're just silencing me. I'm kidding. For the audience, I am kidding.
Oh my goodness. So, but I pointed out that I kind of like this. This makes me happy doing this on Star Wars Day because it's nostalgic for me.
You mean on a Free Comic Book Day?
Yes, Free Comic Book Day, because it takes us back to one of our original episodes.
Yep.
With the Boom Dinosaur.
The Boom Dinosaur.
Our amazing Triceratops, Azul, who we would attach our lapel microphone.
That was attached to your phone.
He acted as a sound dampener, and we would speak into his head to record our first podcasts of Com Talk.
So bad.
Even after we got rid of the lapel mic and we were using the ice ball,
Mm-hmm.
we would mount him up on top of the microphone. Do you remember that?
To kind of
act as a shield, continue to absorb sound, ambient sound.
Because we were still recording in the living room.
Yeah.
Which is very echoey.
Those first, if you guys haven't heard our earlier episodes, which a lot of them you can hear via the Harju files, they're listed as the Lost files. Because we only have like up through episode, I think the earliest one on this feed is like episode 15, episode 14.
Yeah.
And so, but thanks to our friend John Harju, he captured those other ones for us before our previous host went down and disappeared
Completely.
So anyways, so that being said, today's show, the format's going to be this. The first half, we're going to talk about Star Wars Day because legitimately it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. And so we're going to talk about Star Wars Day. We're talking about something interesting we watched today. And then on the back half, we're going to talk about comics. Specifically, it's one of the comics. We each chose one comic that we got from our local comic book shop on Comic Book Day. So let's jump into it today, Celeste. We were looking to start watching Bad Batch because we didn't realize the final season came out.
April just flew by us.
Oh my goodness.
We were so busy during April.
Just light speed right past everything. And so we missed that. We missed the start of My Hero Academia.
Yeah, we need to catch up on that too.
There was so much that we missed out on. So, but we were going to do Bad Batch because we want to talk about Bad Batch on here. And we turned it on, and what did we find?
We realized that they dropped the Tales of the Empire today.
Yeah. Now, Tales of the Empire, this is I've been educated recently in a previous podcast that is not heard.
The one where you silenced me?
But it's an anthology, which
Yes.
if I understood correctly what you're saying, an anthology basically is just a collection of short stories that are within a world, but they're not part of the main story of the world.
Yeah, that I think is the base. That's what I've always come to understand it as.
Okay.
In my experience, that's what anthologies are.
Gotcha. So it's an anthology based around Star Wars. Now, it's based around stories within the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So this is dealing with the quote unquote dark side of the Force, and the first half dealt with, I keep wanting to say Morgana.
It's because you're thinking of King Arthur.
Yeah, Morgan
Elsbeth.
Who, honestly, I forgot she was a character. At first,
she was not terribly memorable,
mm-hmm.
except for the fact that she brought in the Nightsisters
Right.
to the Ahsoka series.
Right. And then the second half dealt with a former Jedi Knight named
Jedi Padawan
named what?
Barriss.
Which I'm not gonna lie, every time they said Barriss, all I thought about was Dragon Ball.
Wrong Barriss.
So these are the stories that it's dealing with in
Mm-hmm.
this anthology. And it was like 15 minutes ish.
Yeah.
This episode.
Yeah, each episode was 15 minutes. There was 3 episodes per story, which I kind of prefer
Mm-hmm.
to the way they did Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, they were kind of like one and done, weren't they?
Yeah, they really didn't cross over as much.
Mm-hmm.
They provided backstory into
Mm-hmm.
some characters we already had met,
Yeah.
but didn't necessarily.
They
They didn't flesh a lot of things out. They just kind of gave you snippets.
Yeah.
So I appreciated the while these were still snippets, that they fleshed out these characters, which were kind of side characters.
Mm-hmm. Like Morgan, she really, I don't. Here's the deal, guys. I like Star Wars. I really do. And we've watched quite a bit, but I'm not like an encyclopedia of all of it. But from my understanding, I didn't see anything of Morgan before she appeared in Mandalorian
I don't remember.
when Ahsoka fought her.
I don't remember her.
And then she was in Ahsoka, obviously, afterwards. And she was an interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
But this gave you, what's the word I'm looking for? Understanding of who she is in a deeper way.
Which is good considering that she played this important part in
Mm-hmm.
the Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
Bringing in the Night Witches, ended up, if I'm remembering correctly, having a tragic end, which
Mm-hmm.
everybody saw that coming. So it was nice to get some backstory on her.
Yeah, definitely. And so now you mentioned that there's segments.
Mm-hmm.
And so episode 1, which was called The Path to Fear,
Mm-hmm.
was Morgan when she was a young girl. Kind of tragic. And again, she's a Nightsister. It takes place during the Clone Wars. And her whole family was destroyed and trying to figure things out, basically.
Her whole clan.
Yeah, her whole clan. And then episode 2 was A Path to Anger. And that one took place, we were theorizing during the New Hope era, kind of right before New Hope, maybe. Like it's during the height of the Empire.
I'm pretty sure it was in the Star Wars Rebels
Mm-hmm.
era.
Yeah.
So 12, 15 years after episode 3.
Yeah, it was before, well, it would have to be because Admiral Thrawn and what's his face?
Mm-hmm.
They were on the other side of the galaxy before the New Hope era.
Yes.
So it was before that then. Yeah.
So it fits in with Rebels
Yeah.
rather than New Hope.
Exactly.
But it's also several years after
Mhm.
episode 3 because Thrawn is an admiral.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of where that is. And then episode 3, which is A Path to Hate, which if you guys are hardcore Star Wars fans, you know.
You're starting to recognize
Yeah,
this.
fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to the dark side. That takes place after the original Star Wars movies in the kind of the rebuilding era of the
Mhm.
New Republic. And it ends right before this character is introduced into Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
which I appreciate. I appreciate that it all plugs in nicely.
Yeah.
It fits in, and I appreciate that because I think it's Dave Filoni worked on
Yeah,
it.
it is.
It's fleshing out that world, helping us to see things a little bit better.
Yeah, it's giving us filling in some holes
Mm-hmm.
that are not necessarily important holes,
Mm-hmm.
but from a world building perspective, it's nice to know the motivations of people, even if they're not the main characters.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then the second half of it was dealing with Barriss,
Mm-hmm.
who was a former Jedi Padawan who I can't remember exactly what she did something major.
I don't remember exactly what she did, but I do remember that whatever happened with her was the start of Ahsoka's disenfranchisement with the Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
because Ahsoka thought they were wrong.
Yeah. And starts off with her in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And right at the start of Order 66.
Yeah, and we know this because of something that was said in the beginning of that episode.
Right. And she becomes a Inquisitor.
Yeah.
And it's really the story of her becoming the Inquisitor.
Well, and it plays into the whole lore of the Inquisitors that they've built up,
Mm-hmm.
because in some of the supplementary books that are still considered canon,
Mm-hmm.
the Inquisitors were Force-sensitive people
Right.
that weren't aligned with either side or had been and then dropped off.
Right.
Like Barriss.
Mm-hmm. And so this is because, again, then it's the Empire, so everything's very dark.
Yeah.
In that first episode of Barriss, it was like you see her conflicted with joining the Inquisitors.
Right.
And then episode 2 of her story arc,
Mm-hmm.
that's where she has the awakening of this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, she's basically a Padawan Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
And who was Lynn? Like, she knew who Lynn was. I can't remember.
I caught that, but I don't remember her.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who she is. I'm going to have to do some digging later.
Yeah. If you listen on YouTube and leave a comment, let us know. We probably should have done some more research before we jumped into it, but we want to give you guys our initial thoughts on it.
Yeah. These are fresh.
Yeah. So, but basically Lynn is her Inquisitor master, I guess.
Well,
they don't really operate in that fashion, but she was learning from Lynn.
But they do, at least until so many of them had gotten killed, they did go in pairs.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's necessarily so much that she was the apprentice as it was she was her partner.
Mm-hmm. So, but that's where, again, the whole thing with Morgan, it was dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was sad. You see this girl her life was destroyed and her family was destroyed, and the descent into the bondage of the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Barriss starts off in bondage,
Mm-hmm.
literally imprisoned, and then struggling as she's being pulled deeper into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of episode 2, there's a moment that she wakes up and she actually claims the Jedi name back.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
To me, it kind of showed growth.
Yeah.
Because in the Clone Wars, she was very disenfranchised with the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
She very much didn't want anything to do with them. And I think it's because, if I remember right, there was something that Palpatine had ordered to happen. And Barriss and her master had caught on to it. Her master died because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has this disenfranchisement with the Jedi.
Right.
So to be able to claim the Jedi name again after having been away for it for so long was really interesting to me.
Mm. Which in of itself, I mean, there's a lot we can run with that whole conversation. Yeah. And again, that's where there was a lot of hope in this one.
There was.
Because again, she struggled with the darkness. She was in bondage. She was in the stuff. And then she's forced to make a decision that puts her deeper into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a moment of clarity, she realizes the error of her ways. And she literally force pushes back on the situation. But then in the third episode, you see her as I'm not really sure how many years later this is, but she looks like she's aged a lot. And Lynn does not.
Well, and again, hard life reflects on your body.
True.
We also don't know what her species is and how they age.
Yeah. So, but she's what did they call her? Something mother. Wise mother?
A healer.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, she was called a healer, but the two people working with her, they called her something mother. I think they called her wise mother or something like that. And she's really walked away from everything, and she's trying to be a good person again.
Yeah.
To the point that she tries to save a family, and she tries to save Lynn. Mm-hmm. So what'd you think of that whole story arc with her?
I liked it because those 3 episodes came after the Morgan Elsbeth, you took a plunge into darkness, into a character who we know is dark, into a character we know does not necessarily have redemption. And then they took a character who the last time we saw her was hopeless, and they took her through the journey of back to hope. There was a comment, and this is going to get a little spoilery, but there was a comment where she says, the ship is programmed to take you to a friend of mine. She will know what to do.
Right.
And I went, she's locked back up with Ahsoka.
That's what I was thinking too. So I'm curious how much of this ties into the books, because you read the Ahsoka books.
There's only one.
Oh, okay. I thought there was multiples. Okay.
Just one that I can see, and it's done by what's her name? Hang on, let me find it.
Okay. Well, while you're looking it up again, I'm curious how much it plays into that. But you're right. I mean, I enjoyed the second half because I appreciated not the levity, but the hope that was restored of a restored life. Whereas the first half with Morgan, I mean, it was just the sad descent that led to the deeper descent you see take place within the Ahsoka series itself.
Yeah. The book is called Star Wars Ahsoka, and it's by E.K. Johnston. And they have played a lot with that because that's kind of where, except for Rebels, the first time you see the Inquisitors is in that book.
Gotcha.
And there's also a lot of other lore that gets built into it that they've played with in the things.
Nice.
All the things. So it's a really good book. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, overall, what did we think of Tales of the Empire?
I think it's worth a good 45 minutes. Watch times 2 for both of these stories. I don't want to do the math of how much time that is. I mean, it's the equivalent of sitting down and watching a movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's not the stereotypical Star Wars where everything is epic and battles, and it's paced a little differently.
There were some good fight scenes in it.
There were definitely some good fight scenes in it, but it was focusing more on fleshing out the stories of these two people who are pretty much in the background of everything.
Right. I'm going to agree. I think it's worth watching. If you're a fan of the Star Wars series franchise, it gives you a deeper look. Again, I love how to put this. I think the complaint people had with the prequel series, amongst the plethora, but one of them was just the world building.
Yeah.
It was such a weird throw into it. But then you see what they did with Star Wars Clone Wars series and Star Wars Rebels, and how that world building, after watching Clone Wars, it made the final portion of episode 3, quotation mark, so much more impactful to us.
Yeah, it did.
And the world building that they did with those things, I genuinely enjoy. And that's one of the things I like about several of the Star Wars franchise stuff that's out there, is that they build up this fabulous world. Historically, and we'll talk about this later, the comic books I enjoy reading don't necessarily take place within the normal Star Wars time frame.
Yeah, it's not part of the canon.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's the ones I enjoy. It's the the ones that do the world building outside of things, where you see the stories about the Jedi Knights and the Sith Academy and all this sort of stuff, and that growing of the world, seeing things fleshed out, and then little pockets that you see dropped that lead to what we know in the main franchise. I love that.
I think that is the strength of specifically the Dave Filoni stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have opinions about the latest 3 Star Wars movies, and they're mostly rooted in my disdain for the person who was running Star Wars at the time. They're entertaining, but they're not great. But Filoni seems to be going, okay, let's get back to what Lucas did, what originally made people love this,
right?
And let's flesh that out.
Yeah,
because Lucas created this great world, but he had no ambitions to actually like flesh out all the other stuff.
Right.
It was just like, oh, it's a thing.
Yeah, and then the fan base,
yes,
fleshed it out.
Yes, which has now been is now part of the Legends stuff.
Some of it's part of Legends.
Some of it's not.
Yeah.
The things that contradict.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I can, whatever.
So, all right. Well, that's our thoughts on Star Wars Tales of the Empire. If you guys watch it, let us know. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Free Comic Book Day.
All right, so what we like to do here on the Retro Rewind podcast is at the end of our like section, we do our classic makers, the things that we loved most about the movies we cover. I'll start us off, then we'll go to Paul. The thing I loved most about The Princess Bride was probably the dueling sword scene between Inigo and Dread Pirate Roberts, Wesley. That's just such a great sword fight scene. I love that they use the actual fencing like terminology and techniques. And the only little quibble I have is when Wesley does his spinning, his
the best sword fight scene ever.
Yes, but when Wesley does his gymnastics high bar routine and lands, you can see the pillow bag or the mat puff up with the dust. You see the outline of it, so it's not perfect. But that is my favorite part about Princess Bride. How about you, Paul?
My favorite thing about The Princess Bride is the movie The Princess Bride. I just love that it exists. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the cast. I love the interaction. It's just it's one of my top favorite films of all time. So I like the whole movie. Paul,
how can that be your top movie when, as good as that sword fight is between Wesley and Inigo, I feel like the one between Inigo and the Six Finger Man should be even more epic, and it's sort of like isn't as good.
He's not better. No, that it will be less because Wesley's better, so therefore that fight would be better.
All right, fine. You know what? All right, well, I guess, but now we do have to talk about. Oh, darn it! I always do this. How come I cannot remember one more thing I liked? Calm Talk by Geek Devotions. You're listening to it right now.
And we are back. I want to encourage you guys, make sure you go check out our friends over at Retro Rewind Podcast. They're amazing friends of ours, PaulJPowers.com and Francisco Ruiz. Love those two guys a metric ton. And I really want to encourage you guys, check out Francisco, check out what he's doing, because he's developing a game. And if you guys go to his YouTube channel, his Rumble, and his Twitch, you'll see streams lately where he's playtesting a game that he's making called Junkyard Juggernauts, and it's actually a fun game. And I feel bad because he's been looking for people to playtest and help him develop stuff, and I am not available to help out, and I want to so badly.
It's one of those things of we've entered our what we lovingly call busy season, where we're not going to necessarily be available on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
So not that Saturday mornings are necessarily ever super free, but we're legitimately about to hit the point of where we have no Saturdays free.
Exactly. So, but go check him out, guys. The game he's building is actually really cool. I'm excited about when it drops out, and I will be taking part in the Kickstarter for it.
Yes,
so,
we will.
But that being said, speaking of busy Saturdays, today was a busy Saturday for us because not only were we podcasting, but it was Free Comic Book Day. And as I said at the top of the show, I have a lot of nostalgia for Free Comic Book Day for us for our podcast period.
Mm-hmm.
But just I enjoy Free Comic Book Day. I think it's a cool opportunity for you to go to your local comic book shop if you have one, and not just get free comics, but be part of the community.
Yeah.
So there is just something about walking to a comic book shop and there being a plethora of people.
Yeah.
Just doing life, walking around, and when you're part of the community already, there's something nice. We're walking in and one of the guys like, "Hey, Dallas," like, "Hey, what's up?"
Yep.
The young lady that was bagging up our stuff, she knows who we are.
We've known her since she was in high school.
We do. And so it's just a cool experience to do all that. And if you're not familiar with Free Comic Book Day, it's not that you can go in there and get any comic book you want, but there are select comic books that are listed. They actually have Free Comic Book Day at the top of the issues, and most of the comic book shops will have them listed out. A lot of them will be running special deals or programs at the same time. And other places will do stuff. I know that Second and Charles today, they were doing what was it? Buy two get one free.
I think it was the opposite. I think it was buy one get two free.
Are you okay? I didn't read that. That's what you do.
Let me check that information.
I may be making a trip. It's probably on super select things though. I bet it was on individual issues though. I bet it was on the graphic novels. So
probably.
But anyways, I like collecting graphic novels personally.
I do too, because they're a little, I read real fast.
Yeah.
So for me, the comic book is not.
I mean, I love collecting individual issues.
I do too.
I feel bad because I haven't been able to collect issues in a long time for various reasons. And, but I enjoy comics. You enjoy comics.
Oh yeah.
Comics take me back to my childhood for various reasons. For those of you who didn't know, I'm not a great reader. I can read. I was never classified as being in need of special intervention for reading. I could read, and but I'm just not good at it. And so I hated reading books. And so my mom did everything in her power to just get me to read something. I remember as a kid, I was a big fan of Michael Jackson. And so my mom got me every one of those CDs simply because she would challenge me to go, "Hey, you should learn the lyrics within the CD, within the cases of the CDs and the VHS, not the VHS, my goodness, cassette tape boxes." Michael Jackson had all of his lyrics.
It is a buy two get one free. I'm sorry. I mixed those numbers up
On individual issues.
It does. I didn't specify.
So anyways, so I read all of his lyrics, but also comic books were a huge thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my first comic book was one of my first comic books that I ever got that I loved was Nightwing Annual number, I think it was number 1 or something like that. It was this really cool pulp noir type of cover to it. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your first comic book that you can remember?
There was a Bible comic that someone gave to us or came across, or I only ever had the first issue, and it was basically a track.
It probably was a track.
Well, no, it was bigger than a track. It was actual comic book shaped.
Did it take place in a town called Wholesome?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Okay.
But that sounds right.
I know what those are.
It was interesting. And so I remember being fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
But because I loved the comic strips in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
But that until I was probably 15, 16, that was my only exposure.
Then comes Bobby.
Yes, with all the comics.
Thank you, Bobby. Well, Celeste, what did you get today at Free Comic Book Day? Okay, we got a plethora of things.
We did.
But what one thing did you choose to talk about today on the podcast?
So I picked badly with my ones to talk about, because I picked one and it was 4 books,
Mm-hmm.
but it was only like half of a intro to each of the books, and it cuts off midway through, and it's like, go buy more. And I got it because it was connected to the Tea Dragon Society,
Oh,
which is a card game that I enjoy.
yeah.
Because it's cute.
Yeah.
It's cozy.
It was fun to play.
Yeah. It's one of those that would be good to play if we had kids over, because it's real simple,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's entertaining once you get the gist of it.
Yeah.
And they have comic books, like the almost manga
Right.
style. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, maybe this is like an individual issue of that. And it's all from the same people who do the Tea Dragon Society, but it was not, it wasn't a full story.
To be fair, most of your Free Comic Book Day stuff are samplers.
Yes.
They're designed to go, oh, this is interesting, or introduce you to several things to get you to go, let me go buy these.
Yes, but it was more unsatisfying than that usually is.
Mm.
So then I picked up a Pokemon one, and I was like, okay, let me get into this. And it dropped me in the middle of a story. I had no idea what was happening.
Oh, no.
Like, it's not even the beginning of a story.
Mm.
It's in the middle of the ongoing Pokemon manga.
Mm.
And I'm sitting here going, but this is not how I want to be introduced to this. I want to know what's going on.
Right.
So I didn't pick great when I
oh, no.
when I was like, let me read one of these to talk about.
So, well, granted, you didn't choose something that was going to help you with what you wanted to do, but did they draw you in where they make you go, you know, I might read these mangas. I might want to check these out later.
The Pokemon one did not, because I was just confused.
Yeah.
But in the back of that, there was they've started a new series with the Splatoon books.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gotten another Splatoon book, and it was one that I'd already read. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see if this is one that I've read. And it looks like it's a spin-off series from the one that I read.
Oh, neat.
So, and it's at the beginning. So it was a lot of fun, because it's kind of taking the characters from I think it's Splatoon 2. It's over there.
Mm-hmm.
Series, and takes them into the Splatoon 3 world.
Oh, wow.
And like introduces you to the first character that you meet, like the intro of 3.
Yeah.
Where it's the Octoling with the braid.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of fun. And I was like, okay, I should get into this, because this could be fun. So I did enjoy that. It wasn't the main title of the book. It was like an add-on. And I think I enjoyed it more than I did the Pokemon one, because it didn't drop me in the middle.
Right. All right. I get that. I totally get that. Well, the one I picked up for me to talk about today is the Free Comic Book Day Star Wars issue that they had, which had 2 action-packed stories featuring Darth Vader, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker, and many more classic characters. And it was an interesting read. Story 1 was called Return to Echo Base, and it takes place in this interesting time frame. It doesn't show Han. I think Han is already in Carbonite. And so Luke, Lando, Leia, and Chewie have to go back to Echo Base on Hoth to rescue some people that got left behind.
That would make sense, because Lando wasn't with them until after
Mm-hmm.
Han got frozen.
Yep. So they have to go back to the base to rescue a couple people. And it's interesting the way they kind of play it out, because it's, again, it's part of that world building. And you're like, why is there a whole company of stormtroopers left there? Well, because their lieutenant got himself in trouble, and basically this was punishment duty. So that was a thing that took place.
That tracks.
Yeah.
Hoth is cold.
It is. And it was a cool little story. There's some cool callbacks to the original movie, which if you haven't watched the movie, you wouldn't know like what the significance of the cave that he was hiding out in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it was a complete story, but it was really short. It was kind of a slice of life, not slice of life because that's more casual, but it was a quick little in and out type of story. And art wise, it was pretty nice. How do I put this? The art for these Star Wars books have almost always been pretty solid. And then the second story was called The Curse. And this one I was more confused about because it's not necessarily based on the movies. This one is kind of out of the world of, like there are little markers on it that says, as seen in Darth Vader issue 46. And in fact, the end of it, it ends with a tag saying to be continued, actually in Darth Vader episode or issue 46. And but it seems to be pulling from several sources. And again, it's in the world. This was almost like the anthology stuff that we talked about.
Yeah.
It's in the world. Vader's been doing his own thing for a hot minute already, and seems to be. Again, I've not been reading the Vader series. I've heard the Vader series is pretty good, but kind of almost rebelling against his master. And it's interesting. Now, throughout the entirety of the book, though, it is advertising different Star Wars comic books.
Oh.
So, like, it's like one-page ads for, like, Star Wars, Dark Droids, Star Wars, Thrawn Alliances, Star Wars, Darth Maul, Black, White, and Red. And then, of course, you got Darth Vader. They advertised a Mace Windu series of comics.
I've just recently heard that they had started one of those.
And also a Jango Fett book, apparently. And so, again, the whole point of these things really is to get you interested in a series, but also pointing to other stuff. And so, they're not meant to be full-on stuff.
No.
They're free.
Yeah. These are advertisements.
But done well.
Yes.
So, was there anything else in your pool that you guys are like, man, this looks interesting. Want to check it out?
I got a couple of things. One of them I got was strictly nostalgia. They have made a graphic novel, comic book style thing of an old series called Sweet Valley Twins. And that is one that I read a ton of because my mom had been into that. There was Sweet Valley Kids, Sweet Valley Twins, and then Sweet Valley High. I was never allowed to read Sweet Valley High, and I don't know why. I've never gone back and read it. It followed this set of twins that were born and raised in California, and then when it went from kids to twins, it was just, they were like 12 or 13.
Right.
And so it same storyline, just a continuation, changed the name with their age. And they were like, I read so many of those that when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, they made this into a comic. And so I grabbed it, even though I'm probably going to read it once and go, oh, that was cute, and go on because I've matured past that. But it hit me in the feels. I was like, oh, it's a thing.
I appreciate that. That's cool. I got a Initial D comic book, which Initial D is it's a manga anime, but also a live action movie. There was one of it, which I actually saw the live action movie on the plane when I went to the Philippines several years ago. During that whole, I don't know what time it is. It's might be losing my mind time frame.
Right around the time you cross the date line.
Probably. So, but I got one of those, and I also got. It was interesting. It was Adventure of the Mexi Kid.
That one kind of intrigues me.
It's real simple illustrations. It's actually quite quaint. I kind of like it, but it's almost a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a biography, but like the guy's telling the story about real life story about when he was a kid, and
it's kind of an autobiography.
Yeah, but where he's a American born child. His parents had immigrated from Mexico to the United States, and he was born in the States, and so it's covering that whole like challenge of not really feeling like you fit in both worlds of you're raised in the States, but because culturally your household is Mexican, you feel out of touch with everyone else. But then because in it, they go back to Mexico to pick up the grandfather, their Mexican Revolution grandfather.
Oh no,
that's how old the gentleman is, to bring him back to the States with them. And so loading up in a Winnebago, using rope as seatbelts.
Yep.
To travel, but that whole journey with 8 siblings.
Oh God.
But they were going to Mexico, and then feeling that other awkwardness of going, he's American and he doesn't really fit in with the Mexican family, like Mexicanos, like straight Mexicanos. And so it's that living that strange bridging world that so many immigrant children have to go through. And and I'm intrigued to read it because I have so many friends who, not necessarily in that situation, but friends who are missionary kids who were born on the mission field, have been raised in other countries. I got one friend specifically I think about every time I think about the science story, where she is a short, blonde hair, blue-eyed woman. And when I knew her, she was 19, 20 years old, born and raised in Argentina. And mentally, she's Argentine, but she doesn't look Argentine. The people don't think of her as Argentine. Here, stateside, they think, oh, you're just a typical American girl, but her mindset is Argentine. To the point that I actually had to go with her to court because she got in trouble for touching a train that she didn't know she wasn't allowed to touch. So I think about those type of situations, but that's that balance of culture that you have to deal with. And so I'm going to read this and I may check out the rest of the series later. It sounds interesting.
It does sound interesting. It's one of those that the decisions of parents reflect on children, and the children have to deal with the consequences. Not saying it's bad,
right?
Because your friend who was a missionary kid clearly grew up loved, loves the Lord, like was raised well, but there is an awkwardness of she didn't choose to be born in Argentina, and she didn't choose to be blonde hair, blue eyed,
right?
When all of her friends were not. Like there's things that happen that
So this is again, like you said, it's just that awkwardness. And so, again, for clarity, this is a story about a young man who's American. So if those of you going to freak out, have a chill pill. But he's an American kid, and he's having to straddle that line of being an immigrant family, which I think it's special. I think it's a special kind of story, and I'm intrigued to hear that. So, all right. Well, I think that's about it.
I think we're good.
We have to talk about. Check out last week's episode of Geek Devotions, where I talked about Fallout because I forgot about Star Wars Day happening this weekend.
You forgot on May 3rd that tomorrow, the next day, was May the 4th?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I did not plan ahead. Guys, pray for me. Like, we have a lot happening on our plate, and I have lost track of time and things, and I'm trying my best to keep things on track. So, but check out that episode, and we have several things popped online. At some point, we have a new episode of The Bottom Shelf coming out.
Yep.
Don't know what happened on it because we were dying.
We were sick. We have is this dropping today?
Hopefully.
Okay. If this comes out Saturday, we have the 2-year anniversary episode of We Read Allegedly.
Ooh.
That just came out.
Let's go. Check that out. Also, we're going to have another episode of The Gundam Watch, where the guys are going to be reviewing the movie that was based off of a banned episode of Mobile Suit Gundam. So
I think I came across a TikTok about that.
Fascinating. So I think that's about it. Celeste, you want to close this out?
Sure. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Com Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts or to Spotify to rate and leave a review. It is very much appreciated. So until next time, stay devoted.
Peace and love. May the Force be with you.
And also with you.